do you think was the difference from that Villa game where he just looked like he was sulking pretty much the entirety of the match to today? Is it just purely something that happened in his life, or do you think, I don't know, a chat with Erik ten Hag along the way?
Well, he's not looked from the Rashford we saw last season. He's not a patch on that Rashford. But this boy has got immense talent. You don't know whether he signed a contract. I believe that makes him the highest paid player in the Premier League. I'm not sure in the Premier League, but certainly one of the highest in Manchester United. Well, it's certainly, if he's one of the highest in Manchester United, he's one of the highest in the Premier League, right? So, but Michelle, his body language has not given, like I said in the warm-up today. He was laughing and joking. He had a different element to his game today with his pace. Without the ball, he was tracking back. Ten Hag took him off against Villa late on when your man come on and scored the winner because they were getting out on that right-hand side and he wasn't tracking back and he just didn't look happy. But today...
Well, I think it's normal for all players that doesn't matter how good you are, even as good as Marcus Rashford is, it's normal that you're going to have dips in form. It's just that's just life, human beings. But his dip this season's gone a bit longer than what we expected. And I think maybe, like Carlton says, we don't know what's going on. Maybe that's affected him. He hasn't scored the goals as he did last year. It's affected his confidence, his performance. We saw Haaland yesterday. He's going through a little period. We saw there yesterday. Things are not... He's trying his hardest. Things are not happening for him. You can see him getting frustrated. And maybe that's happening with Marcus. Maybe he feels more pressure this season because he's got Højlund and he's got Garnacho on one side, and he feels the pressure because he's the most experienced player. We don't know, but what we do know is when he's on his game, then he's as good as anything as an attacker in the Premier League. He's fantastic when he's on his game. Well,
one of the things I think he was unhappy about is Garnacho. Because Rashford prefers to play on the left-hand side,
so
and he moved him to the right-hand side, didn't he? And I think he had a sulk up about that, and now Ten Hag's moved him back out to the side that he favours. So there's little bits and bobs, but to be fair, overall today, I thought he was excellent today.
Do you think he has a good relationship with Erik ten Hag, and particularly in the sense that, were you surprised he was put back into the squad pretty much immediately after what happened before that Newport game?
Well, listen, at the end of the day, we've all been managers here, and there's all misdemeanours. You have to deal with it a certain way. I just think that as a manager, you've got to show a consistency in the way you are, right? If he stepped out of line, then Sancho did exactly the same. But Sancho has not been afforded the same luxury as Rashford. Ten Hag comes out and says, well, Sancho went public. Sancho did not go public before Ten Hag had called him out, right? So it's one of those, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to be consistent as a manager.
But did Ten Hag really call him out? All he did was answering a media question.
But he should have just batted that away. Should have just, well, when they asked him the question about Rashford, all he said was it's an internal matter, we'll sort it out. Why didn't he do the same with Sancho?
Well, maybe he's learned. Maybe he's learned off the back of the Sancho situation, because let's be honest, the outcome of the Sancho situation for Manchester United, in my opinion, in no way is it to the advantage of the club. No. A highly talented player who is now no longer playing for Manchester United Football Club or being available.
The scenario is different because in Rashford's case, in that case, was a disciplinary matter, not really football related on the pitch, but on Sancho's case, it was the fact that he wasn't training at a high standards.
Who says that though, Michelle? That's what he says. I have it on account from the players at the football club. They don't agree with that. They don't agree with that. So, you know, he's come out and publicly said that he wasn't training well. And for a player to not want to apologise, players want to play football. For Sancho to not want to apologise and say, right, listen, we all make mistakes, and if you honestly believe in your mistake, you go, right, I'm sorry. Sancho flatly refused to, and I wouldn't have apologised on the basis of, you've called me out.
But shouldn't the point of whether someone's been training well or not be from the eyes of the manager rather than the teammates who are saying, oh, he's been training well, he's all right?
Well, I can only... I'm an outsider looking in, and I didn't see Sancho training, but I seen him in the games, and he was nowhere near good enough for me. He was nowhere near good enough in the games because prior to coming to Manchester United, he was on fire playing. He was in Germany. I used to watch him every weekend. He was excellent, excellent. He came to Manchester United, and it just didn't happen. Didn't see his week's training. I didn't see his schedule. All I watched was when he played for Man United, and for me, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for the money they paid for him. As good as a player as he's shown, they signed him for a reason because he's a very good player. He didn't show that enough for me. I'm not going to comment on Ten Hag, how he handled the situation. Everybody's got an opinion on that, of course. All I can say is when I watched him playing for the team, he didn't affect the team.
No, he didn't, Cookie, but he come into a poor team. He come for a lot of money. He's a young player, and I don't think he was given... Yes, there's an expectation because you moved from big money, but I don't think he was given the time. Look at what he's done with the lad that he's brought in. The 89 million he spent on the boy. How many games he's given? How many opportunities he's got? He's been poor. Anthony.
Yeah.
And he's brought him in. He's been poor. He's been absolutely poor. Yeah, but he's given him time and time and time again. He's been poor.
No, listen, that's his choice. That's his choice. You're right. I can't see Anthony being a Manchester United player. I can never see him being a Manchester United player. I'm not seeing enough, even glimpses. But why I was disappointed with Sancho?
Yeah.
Because he is a good player.
He is.
He is a good player.
Yeah.
He proved that before he arrived at Manchester United. And I kept saying, go on, show it. Do what you can do. And he never delivered it. Now, maybe because he's not very happy at Manchester United because his relationship with Ten Hag is not a good relationship.
But we talked about this before, Cookie, right, as a manager. I've heard the stories about him turning up late for training, but apparently he did that for Dortmund. And you were saying to me about the flair players. What you were saying to me, you've got to have a bit of latitude as the manager, right?
What you don't want when people get this wrong, they say, "Oh, I want a dressing room full of soldiers." Well, no, you don't. Not in football. You need those exhibitionists type of mentalities. The guys that are going to open the door with that imagination. Those players who bring that, they've also got another side to them. Most of them.
Yeah.
Where sometimes they're a little bit in training, they're not where they need to be. Sometimes they're a little bit, they're late, this, there. As long as you give them a little bit of a nudge and say, you know, it's not one rule for everybody. I don't agree with that. As long as everybody respects what you're trying to do, all these different personalities, they behave differently. And for me anyway, sometimes I'm going to speak to Carlton a little bit different than what I'm going to speak to Gary. And I'm going to speak to Michelle a little bit different than I speak to Carlton, because you're different personalities.
Give us a couple of examples with, say, the Welsh squad where you would treat one player slightly different to another, so that we can get a clear picture on this. Can you do that?
I think everybody talks about the Welsh squad and they immediately think, because we were Wales, but we've got Gareth Bale playing for Real Madrid. And I can't give you an example of, well, this is what I did with Gareth Bale. I treated him a little bit differently because I didn't need to treat him differently. No. He wanted to be exactly the same as everybody else. Yeah. I didn't have to say to him, we're arriving at this time, but you're coming from Spain, so you can arrive 2 days late. Whatever it was on the schedule, he was there. Yeah. So he was easy. Yeah. He was easy, sure. He's obviously the best player I've ever managed. He's fantastic. But I managed in China I had a mixed bag in China. We had Chinese players and we had foreign players, and some of the foreign players was Xavi Mascherano was one of them. So, but now I need to look at that picture and say, Xavi Mascherano's family is in Argentina. So when we get an international break, I'll say to the guys, we've got 4 days break. Xavi, you can have 5 days. So you can have the extra days traveling. Now, as long as I'm conveying that message to all the players, Xavi's got the extra day because he's got the travelling to do, or 2 extra days because he's travelling 1 day to get there. Everybody understands that. That's what I mean. But when he comes back and he's training, then he's the same as everybody else, you know. But my point with Sancho is, I don't know what exactly. Carlton may know more than me. Gary may know more than me. But what I'm seeing as an outsider, a very, very good player. Was nowhere near the level that he's capable of.
It's funny because you say you have to be flexible in your approach, but you also have to be consistent with your approach, which is what Carlton said. And he was flexible with Jadon Sancho because Jadon Sancho needed a lot of help. Ten Hag arranged special trainings or special help, sent him away as well to get all of that. So he tried to do this sort of carrot on stick, which didn't work. And I guess he's just approaching it in a different
direction. But he's a young player who's gone for a lot of money to a big club. And I agree with Cookie about he was below par, but Manchester United as a club were below par. And so I think, you know, for me, listen, we're having a discussion here and we don't know the truth. We don't know the ins and outs of what's gone on, right? All I know is that Manchester United have signed a player in this Anthony for 90 million, and he's been given loads and loads of opportunities, right, by the manager, and he's not a par on what Jordan Sancho can bring to the table. And we'll see that, because I tell you what, eventually he'll get going again at Dortmund and he'll get back playing. If you know, there was all these stories coming out about the way he was at Dortmund, you know, turning up late for training and whatever, but Dortmund still took him back. Still took him back. Why? Because he's a good player. And like Cookie said, sometimes with players, I played with Eric Cantona, I've played with players who are a little bit different, and sometimes, as a player, I'm not bothered whether you're a little bit different. I'm bothered about on the Saturday getting 3 points. If Eric Cantona is a little bit different and he turned up one day late coming back from France and he scores the winner on a Saturday, so be it.
What he can't do is not produce when he plays and then turn up late for training.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. If he's playing every weekend and he's scoring and he's assisting and he's having a big effect on the team and the team's doing well and he turns up late one day for training, okay, if you're not playing well on the Saturday, you're not training well and you're turning up late, I don't know what. If you're Eric Ten Hag, then you have got a problem.
Do you think he'll play for Manchester United again?
No.
Jadon Sancho? No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think he will either. But we've all played at clubs where we've seen players treated differently, and we've all accepted that when those players have delivered on a match day.
Exactly.
So, you know, I've trained alongside some really bad trainers. You know, they have days off and they spend the day in the treatment room. But come the match day, come the Saturday or the Wednesday night, they deliver.
My point. Exactly my point, Gary. Exactly my point.
But I think Ten Hag, from what I see a little bit with Ten Hag, is a little bit... And I know you've got to have restrictions and you've got to have... We've all been managers, so we've got the rules and we've got guidelines, right? But within that, you've got to have a little bit of flexibility. And I find a little bit with Ten Hag is a bit too much like a Ed Master type. And it seems to be with the young players, you'll get away with it. The young players are coming through, you'll get away with it. The senior players won't wear it. They won't wear it. Look at the fallouts he's had with the senior players. You've got Ronaldo. Dare I say, the greatest player to ever grace the Premier League.
Some people were singing plaudits that he's able to do that to Cristiano Ronaldo.
No, but I don't agree with that, because you've signed a player, you've brought a player to the football club who's got the highest of high standards.
Did he bring him, though?
But either way, whether he's brought him or he's not brought him, you've got a player in that football club that you know has got the highest of high standards for everything. In terms of winning football matches, wanting to win trophies, wanting to score goals. So if you're going to have a player like that in your dressing room, he's not going to be up for excuses about, oh, well, we haven't got this player, we haven't got this player, we're not being successful. It's not going to wear with him, right? I'm not saying I agree with the way he engineered to get out of Manchester United. I'm not saying that, but you've got a player like that. For me, you've got to, you know, you've got the Zlatans of the world who've got the big egos, and you want those big personalities because they're the ones that win your league titles.
And that it all comes down to what Gary said. If they are doing the business on game day and they are being successful and they're contributing to the team that's being successful, then you can swallow it a little bit more. But if they're not training well and they're not playing well, it's inevitable that something's going to happen.